Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to my channel. I'm really sorry that it's taken me so long to make another video. I can only say that life as a mummy is insane. I have just struggled to find the time to do anything. I did promise a Q&A video and some people have sent me a few questions, so inshallah I'm going to answer as many of them as I can fit into my baby's nap time. So the first question that I'm going to answer is, at what age did you revert to Islam and how did you come about it? I was 26. I think a lot of Muslimas that are reverts, that are married to Muslim men, kind of feel that everybody assumes that you converted because of your husband. Either you were forced to, or they persuaded you to, or you did it just to please them, or just so that you could marry them, or something along those lines. And I always find myself getting like a bit defensive about him. And it's not because of him, but in a way it is because of him, because if I hadn't met him I wouldn't have really been introduced to Islam. And although for a very long time we didn't really speak too much about Islam or in depth about it, I did ask him questions. He did kind of bring things up with me in a very natural way as certain things kind of came about, and so we talked, and just questions arose in my mind and I started to kind of look into things and read things. I actually wrote a piece of spoken word even, which kind of talks about my journey to Islam and how it came about, and I will leave a link to that video in the description bar below. Next question is inspiration behind your baby's name, and do the cultures clash between you and your husband? Prior to having a baby, I would say that our cultures didn't or don't clash too much. Mainly, I think, because my husband has lived in the UK for 10-12 years and is quite Western in his kind of mentality and is just generally fairly easy. But then since having a baby, I think that's when things start to come out a little bit, because you're very, as parents, as new parents as well, you're very passionate about wanting to raise your child in a particular way. I was feeling like we needed to get the baby into some sort of routine. Really bad sleeper, and I've been kind of working quite hard to try and establish like a little bit of structure. And the idea of structure and routine in Algerian culture, well, let's just say it doesn't exist. So kids stay up really late with the parents. There's no such thing as going to bed at 7 o'clock in Algeria. They're having afternoon coffee like at that time. So I think my husband was quite surprised at how early I wanted to put her to bed. And I think he thinks that she's still too small to have any sort of routine or structure. It's not something that we've argued about, or that it's been a particular problem. It just highlights that there's kind of a different way. He really wanted the baby to get her ears pierced, and I know this is a controversial thing and I'm not passing any judgment whatsoever, because I'm sure there's lots of people out there who've had their baby's ears pierced and that's absolutely fine. My husband kind of just said, oh, but that's just what we do, like no questions asked. I was very adamant that it wasn't going to happen. So I think it's interesting because there are certain little things unfolding now. But as with anything, it's just about compromise, and it's just about finding the middle ground and understanding the things that you have in common and the things that draw you together and the things that you share the opinions of, and kind of like drawing on that as your foundation, and then just being open-minded. Absolutely, there is massive inspiration behind the name. Fatima was the name of my mother-in-law, my husband's mother, and sadly she passed away quite a few years ago, and it was very, very important to my husband to call his firstborn daughter after his mother. So I have actually, the postman is about to deliver the posts. I have actually written a blog post about completely about naming Fatima, so I will also link that below, and if you are interested you can go and read in a bit more depth. What was your family reaction to Islam? I would say that my family have been fairly mixed. I mean, alhamdulillah, like, it could have been a lot worse. My mum is Christian and she's practicing, and she I think understands where I'm coming from, and I've drawn a lot on the similarities between the two faiths with her and tried to help her understand why I came to my reasoning, and kind of what crucial things like led me to really embrace Islam. And I think she understands, and it's not really something that we talk about. After I initially told her, you know, she asked a few questions, I talked a little bit about things, and to be honest with you, we rarely speak about it. You know, occasionally things will come up about it, but it's just one of those things where it's out there. She's kind of okay. I'm sure she's not okay deep down. I'm sure that she's probably quite troubled by it actually, but she's respectful of it and she doesn't give me too much of a headache. So alhamdulillah for that. I have brothers, and one of which was raised for the majority of his life in London, and he's just been like, yeah, whatever. Like, I'm not really like, whatever, cool, okay, fine. I did have some real difficulties with my other brother, and we actually didn't speak to each other for over a year after I converted. Even now, he still will make comments and post things on Facebook that are really anti-Islam, and he doesn't direct them personally at me, but it's like, hello. And I used to get really riled by it and would enter into kind of arguments, but now I don't really challenge it, we don't really discuss it, and more than anything I just want to try and keep the relationships with my family as positive as possible. And so sometimes I don't think it's worth getting into the debates. Debates can just lead to very painful endings. Well, as you can see, nap time did not last very long at all. This is part of the course with this little girl. So how different do you feel being a mummy, and do you find enough purpose for yourself being a full-time mum, or are you craving work? Well, for those of you who followed my videos, my pregnancy videos, you'll see how much of a difficult time I had actually leaving work and kind of giving up that side of myself and going on maternity leave. I can safely say that I am completely and utterly over that. I absolutely adore being a mum. I feel like it is just so much part of who I am and what I always wanted in my life. So alhamdulillah, I feel incredibly blessed, and it's an amazing journey, and I feel like I've connected with so many people, and the barakah, the blessing that a child brings to your life and your family and your friendships is really special. However, I am not going to lie and you know, this has been the hardest thing I have ever done in my life, and I really underestimated how much hard work it was going to be, and how you could find yourself wrapped up going crazy about something as simple as putting a baby to bed, you know. Things that you think shouldn't be that difficult actually are incredibly difficult. And getting, every time you think you've got something mastered and you think, okay, I've got this, it changes and then you sort of start all over again. But I wouldn't change any of it for the world. Alhamdulillah, you know, sometimes I just look at her and think, oh my gosh, she's my daughter. But I have no desire to be at work right now. I don't feel like I'm missing out. I don't feel like worried about my career. Shafwa binti, Bismillah. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Okay, next question is Fatima your first child, and how did you adjust to being a mom? Okay, so I've partly answered some of that already. She is my first child, alhamdulillah. I would say that I don't know if I have adjusted. I think it's a continuous process of learning and growing. I think there are certain aspects of being a mum where it's amazing how you just switch into that role and suddenly you find yourself doing things that you didn't even know that you could do. And I think in other respects, every day is a learning curve. We're learning together, we're growing together, and I think there are certain things that you take in your stride and there are other things that I just find hard. Just find them hard. Any tips on concentration during prayer whilst having a baby mummy? That's a really good question and I wish I had the answer to that. Salah is something that has really troubled me in some ways because I know how important Salah is and I want to be the best that I possibly can be, and I know that I haven't been. I think it's incredibly challenging to wake up for Fajr on time when you have been up 500 times in the middle of the night tending to a baby. And it's also difficult when you know that the adhan is calling and you know that it's the time of prayer, but you're in the middle of breastfeeding or you're in the middle of trying to get your baby to sleep and you've been trying for 2 hours, and if you stop now you're going to have to start the whole process all over again and that kind of thing. So I think things like that make it very, very difficult, and I have just had to be a little bit realistic with myself and say I'm doing the best that I can do, and inshallah it will get easier and I can be better, and that Miskina, you're still tired, and that Allah is the most merciful and the most forgiving, and there is only so much that you can do. You have to try and prioritise your worship, but I'm new to this and I'm trying to fit everything together as best I can. In terms of concentration whilst I'm actually in Salah, it's hard. It is hard. I basically make dua for every Salah. I make dua for guidance and for concentration and to perfect my prayer. Interestingly, what I find really helps me is I often, if Fatima is awake when I'm praying, okay, she's teething. I lay her on my prayer mat in front of me, and it may sound really cheesy, but sometimes just seeing her little face lie there, and she loves to watch me, because I feel like she's such an incredible blessing and a gift from Allah. Just to have her lay on the mat in front of me whilst I make my Salah really just deepens the connection for me and just makes me feel so much more grateful as I'm praying. One of the other things that I do is I try to imagine that Allah is right in front of me, that Allah is at the foot of my prayer mat. But to be honest with you, like, I have a long way to go with this, and I would appreciate, you know, if there's anybody watching this video and they have other tips for mummies, sisters, then please do share them, because I think we could all benefit from improving our Salah, inshallah. So that is it, I think, for the questions. Yeah. If you have any more questions that I haven't covered in this video or anything else that you would like to know, then please do write them in the comments section, and I will absolutely try and be a bit more on it with my uploading. And I'm really sorry. I am aware that I have a few new subscribers, so welcome to the channel. Thank you very much for joining us. Fatima, are you going to say goodbye? Are you going to say bye-bye? Assalamu alaikum. And thank you very much for watching. Until next time, salam.